Coming up, who should the Nets draft? What trade should they be considering? What free agents will return? I'll answer all those fan questions and more after this.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Nets podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets, every single day. I'm Erik Slater, Brooklyn Nets beat reporter for ClutchPoints.com. Thank you for making me your first listen of the day. This show is 100% free on all those great platforms. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. And on today's show, it's Fan Take Friday, carrying on the tradition that Doug and Adam did for so long. You all submitted and offered takes on a wide range of subjects, from the draft to potential trades to free agency and more. I'm going to answer it all, and not going in any particular order, whatever order the takes came in. I'm going to be rattling them off right now. So first question is, no one has the Nets taking Canipple, even if he falls to 8. What would make him a bad fit for the Nets? Do you believe that taking Canipple at 8, if available, would be a safe move and would anger Nets fans? Nets fans, I feel like, have made their feelings on Canipple clear a lot, or a subset of the fan base has made their feelings on Canipple clear throughout last season and into the draft process. And I think that there's a lot of unfair labels put on Canipple because of his limited athleticism, because of some aspects of his appearance. I think you guys know what I'm talking about, but he's a really good basketball player. And I think for a lot of fans, I think the kind of rhetoric comes from the floor versus ceiling debate. And I think that a lot of fans want to see the Nets take an upside swing at 8 because it's their first lottery pick since 2010. And even that was Derek Favors. Before that, Terrence Williams. They haven't hit on a lottery pick really since Kenyon Martin and Richard Jefferson in 2000 and 2001. So I understand the obsession with ceiling, and I think that the Nets should swing for ceiling, but I think saying that Canipple doesn't have any kind of ceiling is kind of disingenuous. Does he have the ceiling to be a number one option? No, but I think, if he reaches his full potential and maxes out his skill set, I do think that he could be an all-star in the NBA. I mean, he's a dead-eye shooter, off the catch, off movement, shot over 40% from 3 on high volume. He has some ancillary ball handling and playmaking ability. I think he showed a lot of capability to, score around the rim, maybe more than people saw. There were some mid-range chops there. So I think that he's a player who's really, really good. I've talked to a lot of NBA people who say, some people say he's top 5 on their big board. Does that mean that he has the ceiling that some other prospects have? No, but ceiling and floor both factor into a player's evaluation. So do I believe that it would be a safe move for the Nets to take Canipple? I do. I think to a certain extent what you're getting from him. Do I think it would anger Nets fans? I think it would anger some Nets fans because he might not have the ceiling that some of these other prospects have, whoever you want to talk about. And I'm not going to say that they're necessarily wrong, but I think some of them might be discounting what Canipple could be. So are there higher upside swings? Yes. Is Canipple a safe bet? Yes. Will the Nets go in that direction? We'll see. Next one, what do you think the number one trait the Nets are looking for in draft prospects and other players around the league to potentially bring in? In the Scout Series, they emphasize finding guys that are 16-game players rather than 82-game players. I think there's a number of things the Nets are looking for. If you've watched the Scout Series, if you haven't, go check it out on YouTube. Nets putting out Scout Series, awesome access, awesome insights into their process. I think versatility is a word that you've heard them say a lot, and I think that that's more important in today's NBA than it ever has been before. I mean, watch the finals right now with the Indiana Pacers and Oklahoma City Thunder. Are there guys out there who really aren't two-way players? Not really. I mean, there's some guys who are better on one end than the other, but these are all guys who can put the ball on the ground, who can shoot, most of them, guys who can make decisions at a high level. A lot of them can pass. There really aren't any defensive liabilities out there. So I think positional versatility, scheme versatility, two-way versatility, I think that those are all things that the Nets are going to be looking for. And I think there's a lot of players in this draft who can offer that. And I think that's just going to be a big point of emphasis for them and for the rest of the NBA moving forward. Next question, which is the best and worst Nets jerseys since we've been in Brooklyn? Really interesting question, a jersey question. I love to get into some of the uniform stuff. My personal favorite jersey that the Nets have worn since being in Brooklyn is the Coogee edition, the Coogee City edition jersey, which rumor has it that it might be making a comeback this coming season. But I think you guys know what I'm talking about. It's black with Brooklyn on the front, and it has the Coogee, like, pink, purple pattern down the sides and down the shorts. I just thought that those were so clean. And I think they're bringing it back. It's interesting because I'm pretty sure that they got sued by Coogee, which, is a company that had ties to Biggie Smalls and everything. But I think they got sued for not having the rights to use that the first time they used it. But I guess if this rumor is true, that was resolved, because it seems like there's a chance they're bringing it back, which I would love to see because those are just fresh. But the worst jersey, I'd probably go with the Cause jersey from this past season. And no disrespect or hate to Cause, I just didn't like them. I didn't like the color scheme. I didn't like the lettering. I didn't really like anything about them. I think they looked better on the court. I think the court looked good. I think they look better on the players on the court than it does a lot of the times in the picture. But I wasn't a fan of the Cause one. And an underrated one are the navy blue kind of like throwback ones that they wore in the 2022 season. But that was like the season from hell that the Big Three imploded. So everybody hated those because of that. But I like those ones, like the navy blue kind of like retro ones. I think you guys know what I'm talking about. But that's it for Jersey Talk. Next question. What are realistic expectations for fans to have going into next season? I think I've outlined on, over the last week on this podcast what I'm expecting. And what I'm expecting is the Nets to go into another tanking season, a developmental season. So, dude, does that mean that they can't go after Giannis? They can't do some of these things? They could. They could very well pivot. They have the assets. They're in the big market. But I think signs are pointing to another tank in a developmental season. So what I think the expectations for fans should be will be for the Nets to have, 2, 3, 4 rookies coming in, guys who are going to be, developmental guys. They already have some other guys on the team who are developmental, whether it be Noah Clowney, Derek Whitehead. I think Cam Thomas obviously still developing. They'll be further evaluating Nick Claxton if he's still on the roster. So I think it's going to be a developmental season. It's going to be an evaluation season for some players, and it's going to be, a lot of it tied to, maximizing their draft position again. And if they do go in that direction, I would think that they'll try to do a better job of it than they did this past season, because while they were tanking this past season, I think there were a lot of decisions that left a lot to be desired. And I think that was, exemplified in them getting the 6th best lottery odds and then falling to 8. So I would expect a developmental season, a season where there's, again, a big emphasis on draft position, but I think it'll be more exciting than last year because they have these young guys. They have these first-round picks, a lottery pick, potentially even more than one lottery pick for the first time since they've moved to Brooklyn. So watching the development of those guys, I think, will be really exciting and a big point of emphasis for this coming season. One more before we get to a break. Any chance Nick Claxton lands in a deal with Toronto plus a pick to move up to 9? Masai Ujiri has always expressed interest in him. Is there a chance? I mean, yeah, there could be a chance. Do I think it's the most likely thing? No. I know Masai and the Raptors have shown interest in Claxton. I think back in the 2022 season, they showed interest in Claxton at the trade deadline. I know they've always liked him. They've always liked longer players, more athletic, versatile, obviously. But the rumor that we got from Nets Daily, and I talked about and had him on the podcast, was about Cam Johnson potentially packaging him with 19 and bringing back a bad contract to move up to 9 or 10, whether it's with Toronto or whether it's with Houston. I think Cam Johnson's a player who makes a little bit more sense with Toronto because you look at the roster that they have around Scotty Barnes. They need more shooting. Like, they were towards the bottom of the NBA in three-point volume and efficiency this past season. So they already have Jakob Poeltl at center. And I think, bringing Claxton in, I don't think necessarily would be the biggest priority for them. I think they would more prioritize a player like Johnson, who could add some floor spacing around a guy like Scotty Barnes, who, shooting the three hasn't been his forte. So I think they need more floor spacing, more movement shooting, more catch and shoot stuff. And that would point more towards Johnson. Coming up next, we got some fake trades. We got some potential buy low candidates. We have a lot more takes and questions from fans. Get to that after a quick break. But before that, want to tell you about our friends over at Olipop. Olipop is a new kind of soda made for people who love the classic taste of soda, but want something that supports their health with just 2 to 5 grams of sugar and 9 grams of prebiotic fiber in every can. Olipop is reimagining soda in a way that's better for your gut. Traditional sodas, guys, you know this, they're loaded with sugar, like 39 grams in a regular Coke, 44 grams in an orange Fanta. Olipop flips that script with just a fraction of the sugar, no artificial sweeteners, and gut-friendly ingredients like OlliSmart, a blend shown to support digestive and overall health. It's soda that tastes like the real thing, but actually does something good for your body. What flavor am I trying first? It might be their cherry cola. It might be classic grape, or maybe even Dr. Goodwin, their Dr. Pepper dupe. There's nothing better than cracking open a soda that actually supports your gut health. Get a free can of Olipop. Just buy 2 cans in any store and they'll reimburse you for one. Head to drinkolipop.com/LockedOnNBA to claim your free can and find an Olipop near you. There's drinkolipop.com/LockedOnNBA. Coming back from the break here on Fan Take Friday, got some fake trades that some fans threw at me. I'm going to pull up here and give my opinion on just off the dome. So let's look at this first one. 3-team deal, Nets, Rockets, Lakers. We got Nick Claxton and Cam Johnson going to the Lakers. Austin Reeves going to the Rockets, offering them some more scoring, shooting, on-ball creation. They struggled on offense. The Nets getting a lot of salaries that don't look like they're going to be of much use, just filling salary there, as well as 2 first-round picks, including the 10th in this draft and the 2027 swap rights coming back for them. So looking at this deal for the Nets, off the cuff, it looks like a good deal. You're getting a 2031 first from the Lakers. Might not be that high, top 5 protected, but could have some value. But then you get back a number 10 overall pick, which will have a lot of value, obviously, in this draft. And you're getting back the swap rights, which could give you leeway to go into a tank the season after next. You know, you never know what's going to happen. Not go into a tank, but we'll give you leeway to just not worry about where that pick lands. So from the Nets perspective, you're giving up Claxton and Johnson. I guess you could look at this as you're giving up Claxton for that 2031 first, which in a deal with the Lakers, I think that would be what's realistic. You could, maybe get back, if it was just you dealing with the Lakers, maybe that 2030 swap as well. But you get a 2031 swap first. You get a 2031 first for Claxton. Is that the best value? No. But then for Cam Johnson, you could say that you move from 26 to 10 and you get your swap rights back in 2027. Not a bad deal for the Nets whatsoever. You look at it from the other team's perspectives. Would they say yes to this? Giving up Austin Reeves, getting back Claxton, Cam Johnson, Aaron Holiday. I think that's a pretty fair return. I think the Lakers might look to, not on top of this, but just in a deal for Reeves in general, would probably want some draft compensation. But they get a center there. They get a dead-eye three-point shooter, both of which are on good contracts. To get Aaron Holiday as a depth piece, I think that could be something that's realistic. You look at the other guys that they put in the deal: Vanderbilt, Vincent, Kleba, not really guys who were featured members of their rotation this past season. You look at it from Houston's perspective, they're giving up 10. They're giving up the swap rights in 2027. So we'll really say mostly, I guess the swap rights could possibly convey. So those are meaningful too. So they're giving up a first and a swap, but Landale and Williams, 2 guys who weren't part of their rotation. So going from 26 to 10, getting Austin Reeves, giving up a swap from the Nets, not a bad deal for them either. A deal that, of the fan trades you're going to see that get a little bit more involved, not a bad one whatsoever. I think there's at least a story you could tell for all 3 teams, and not a terrible deal for the Nets. So interesting one there. Next fake trade, this one involving, again, the Lakers, the Nets, the Hornets, and the Lakers, with Nick Claxton going to LA. I recorded an episode last week about Claxton potentially with the Lakers. This one, let's see, landing the Nets. All right, the 2030 swap that I was talking about before, and a 2031 first-round pick. Claxton to the Lakers. Hornets getting Rui, Gabe Vincent, 2 second-round picks, including 36 this year. From the Nets' perspective, I think this could make sense because, I talked about the package they could potentially get from the Lakers on a pod last week, and I said it would probably be Dalton Connect, salary fillers, and I would push for the 2031 first and the 2030 swap. So you're getting this, plus Mark Williams, a player who obviously just failed a physical with the Lakers, but has some intrigue. I think, this would be a pretty good package for the Nets. Would I definitely do this if I were the Nets? I don't know. I said on that pod also that I don't think this is the best time to be trading Claxton, but if they could get Mark Williams to replace him, they could get a first-round pick and a swap. I don't think that's a bad deal whatsoever from the Lakers' end. I don't think that they would give up Rui in a deal like this because I think that he's a player who has some utility for them. I think, it would more so be probably Kleba, Vincent, maybe Connect. Like Kleba and Vincent would be the main salary fillers here. So I don't think that really makes sense for them to be giving up Rui in this deal plus a 2031 first and a 2030 swap from the Hornets perspective. They're giving up Williams, whose value is probably way down after failing that physical and after knowing that, the Hornets want to trade him. Okogie and Grant Williams. Williams coming off an ACL. Okogie's an okay player. Them getting back, I think that this isn't a bad deal for them, but the Lakers' perspective, I don't think they'd be adding Rui into this deal. So the trade, Claxton and the Lakers would be the one that I think I outlined on that prior pod, where it'd probably be connect this 2031 first. I think the Nets would push for a 2030 swap to be in, and then salary fillers, probably Kleba, probably Gabe Vincent, though that would probably be the deal that I would be looking at there. But staying on the trade theme, got a few more trade questions. Thoughts on Zion as a buy low candidate? Nets' best run came from buying low on J. Kidd and Vince Carter. I think the same can happen with Zion. There are buy low candidates. There are some that I think would make more sense than other for the Nets. Do I think that Zion, if the Pelicans were to trade him, would it make no sense? No. I mean, I think some people would be scared by his injuries, by all the things that, have gone down with him. But at least from a contractual standpoint, Zion has a lot of outs in his contract that I think would make it a lot easier for a team to trade because the contract's essentially non-guaranteed in the final few years. And there's all of these different kickers and thresholds that he needs to hit with weight and all those things. But I think those being in there, the weight, the injuries, some of the off-court stuff that we've seen over the last year and recently, whether true or not, it's not exactly the type of person or the type of player that I think we've ever seen Sean Marks go after. So I think there would be upside there, obviously, but we're going on 3-4 years now of Zion not being in a lineup consistently, not being able to stay on the floor, his weight, him not being able to control that. And it just seems like there's a lot of things there that trend more towards the negative side in terms of the work ethic, in terms of the off the court stuff. And it just doesn't really seem to me like a player that Sean Marks would be getting involved with. Last one before a break. If for some reason the Nets go down the Giannis path, what do you need to see around him to make it worth it from free agents and people on the trade block? I think that, if the Nets were to go down the Giannis path, they would obviously have to hope that they would have enough with their cap space. They would have enough with their remaining draft picks to field a roster that would be competitive in this Eastern Conference. And I talked about this last week. Is that impossible? No. Is it unlikely that they would be able to trade for Giannis and then put out a roster that would be, a favorite in the Eastern Conference? I don't think they'd be able to do that. Do I think they'd be able to be competitive? Yeah. And if you're talking about the free agents in the trade, I think there's some obvious guys. I think the two Timberwolves guys, I think it's going to be tough for, you have Julius Randle, you have Nickeil Alexander-Walker, you have Naz Reid. I think it's going to be tough for the Timberwolves to bring all three of those guys back. They're involved with Kevin Durant trade discussions, it seems right now, but Naz Reid or Nickeil Alexander-Walker, guys I think could be interesting. Other free agents, you could go the restricted free agent route. You have guys like Santi Aldama in Memphis. You have Quentin Grimes in Philadelphia. They could throw an offer sheet at those guys. You look at the Celtics guys, they're older, but you have Drew Holiday, you have Kristaps Porzingis, two guys who don't really fit the timeline there anymore in Boston with them being knocked out this coming season, and guys who could still have some utility in there. And if the Nets were to just take them into cap space and, let the Celtics save $20 to $30 million off of that, they probably wouldn't need to give up much, if anything, to get those guys. So, from that perspective, I think you'd probably be looking at those free agents I named. There are probably some lower level free agents the Nets could look to pick up, those trade candidates. So that's kind of what it would, I think those would be a lot of the options. Do I think that it would be enough for them to field the roster that would really make it worth it going in? No. And that's the reason that I've said I think it's trending more towards them being in more of a rebuilding situation next year, more of a tanking and developmental year. So I think that's ultimately what it's going to be. And I think that that makes more sense for them than going the Giannis route. But coming up next, going to close it out talking about some free agent stuff, a little bit more trade stuff, and also a couple of draft questions after this. Before we get to that, I want to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Look, guys, maybe you're watching a Nets game and Cam Thomas is heating up while Nick Claxton's blocking shots. With FanDuel, you can combine live prop bets as the action unfolds. If you've got a read on who's heating up, why not back it up with a same-game parlay? New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Closing out today's Locked On Nets episode on this Fan Take Friday. Got a few more I want to rip through while we still have time here. First one being, what are the odds of a KP trade, Kristaps Porzingis trade before the draft? How likely do you see Cam J package to move up to get a second lottery pick? Starting with the KP part of it, I think that there's a decent possibility because the Celtics need to get out of the second apron. I actually just read an article. Jake Fisher put out a report for some intel he got from at the Combine that the Celtics are telling other teams that they're not desperate to shed salary, that they think that some of these guys, whether it be Kristaps Porzingis or Jrue Holiday, still have positive value. Is that passing the sniff test for me? It does that they're not desperate, but them having positive value, I'm not so sure about that. Porzingis is coming off this mystery illness where he really just looked like a complete shell of himself and almost unplayable in the Eastern Conference playoffs. So I don't think anybody's going to give positive value for him there. You talk about Holiday. He's, going into his age 35 season. He looked like a severely diminished version of himself in the playoffs. He has 3 years, $104 million left on his contract. So the Celtics are saying, or at least feigning, confidence that they'll be able to get back, maybe even draft assets alongside Holiday in a trade. Could they possibly? But if we're talking about Porzingis, he's an expiring contract under, I think, $30.7 million this coming season. So I could see the Nets getting involved in that. Are they going to get a premium asset like a, future first-round pick? I don't know, but I do think that the Celtics are going to need to get off salary, and I think the Nets are going to be a really clean and easy fit for them to do so. But you have to remember also that the Celtics don't have to do it before the draft. If we're talking about Porzingis or Holiday, whoever these guys are that they're going to try to get off of, they don't have to. They can wait until into the season because these luxury tax and apron, like the salary cap, isn't calculated until the end of the season. So they could take it all the way up until the trade deadline and then look to move off of him then. So I think the Nets will be involved in that when it does happen. Is it going to happen before the draft? I'm not so sure. Next question. I think the Nets should target Santi Aldama from the Grizzlies, being that he's a young stretch big with Spain connections to Coach Jordy. What do you think? I mean, I like Santi Aldama. I think that he's a really intriguing player. I think some of the things that he's been able to develop in terms of defensive versatility, some of the things he's been able to do, putting the ball on the floor, attacking closeout, the jump shot, I think has come a long way. So he's an intriguing player. Do I think the Nets are necessarily going to go that direction? Probably not, because I expect this year, as I said, to be a tanking and a developmental year. So I think their cap space would be better utilized using it to absorb contracts, to help facilitate trades in return for more draft picks, because bringing in a player like Aldama, where you're probably going to have to overpay or, give him a bloated offer sheet to pry him away from Memphis, and then he's going to make you better. I think it makes more sense to use that stuff to take on, these salary dumps or whatever to facilitate these trades, which probably isn't going to make you better. So it's not going to hurt your draft pick, and you're going to get more assets on top of it to do that stuff in return. So I think that makes a little more sense than throwing a big offer sheet at a guy like Aldama. Last couple, if Ace Bailey falls and is available at 8, will you take him or will you see it as a red flag? I mean, if he's available at 8, I think the Nets would have to take him. I think they probably would take him. It's ultimately going to come down to their evaluation of him. But if he falls all the way to 8, I think a lot of teams are going to be able to talk themselves into. I think the Nets probably could too. The size, the shot making, the skill set, them being able to develop him, a guy who, only played one college season, an extremely young guy. The skill set, the talent is there. So I think they'd be able to talk themselves into it. And if he were there at 8, I think the Nets would definitely take him. And I don't think fans would really have any issues with that. Next one, will Maxwell Lewis have a significant role next season? And what's the plan for Day'Ron's future as a Net? Because he is a restricted free agent. Maxwell, we'll see. I don't think he'll have a significant role next season. He might not even have a roster spot because they have all these other free agents, whether it be Cam Thomas, Day'Ron, Trendon Watford, the other non-guaranteed guys like Jalen Wilson, Tyrese Martin, whoever else. There's one other guy that I'm forgetting right now, but I did an episode on that yesterday. So I think it would probably be more likely that Maxwell, if he's back, would probably be on a 2-way contract. Drew Timme, another guy who could also be on a 2-way contract. So I don't think that he have a significant role. And I think that if he is back, it could be more in a 2-way spot where he could get minutes because the Nets are probably going to be tanking and in a developmental year. Last question, another salary dump question. Which player do you think has the most possibility of absorbing their bad contract for picks? Porzingis, Paul George, or Bradley Beal? Easy one. Porzingis, without a doubt. He's an expiring contract. The Nets could take him into their cap space and be done with it after this season. Paul George, his contract has 3 more years on it. It's probably one of the worst contracts in the league based on how he looked last season and the age that he is. So that the Nets would have to get, even the number 3 pick wouldn't be enough for me to take that contract on. The Bradley Beal contract, the Suns really have nothing to offer, and I don't think there's any 3-team machination where they're going to get an asset that's good enough for the Nets to take on Bradley Beal. So definitely Porzingis out of those 3. And that does it for this Fan Take Friday on Locked On Nets. Thank you to everyone for submitting questions. Hope you enjoyed the responses, and something I'm going to try to keep going all the way through the season. But appreciate all you for tuning in. If you do not already, be sure to like, comment, subscribe on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's Apple Podcasts or Spotify. But I'll be back tomorrow talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.